what we're going to do is we're going to play something to show the difference between what we're talking about during this debate on the Republican side and what they're talking about on the liberal side. We played it last week, but you know what? It bears repeating again. Here's the real difference between Republican foreign policy and keeping America safe versus the Obama administration's feckless, indefensible inaction.
Well, let's begin by understanding the mood of the country. People are really scared and worried.
Here's what I want you to know. The threat from terrorism is real, but we will overcome it.
He keeps speaking about we can't give in to our fears.
That's what groups like ISIL are hoping for. Our success won't depend on tough talk, or abandoning our values, or giving in to fear.
Look, Mr. President, we're not afraid. We're angry. We're pissed off. We're furious. Yes. We want you to react. We want you to do something. You're afraid.
Because a growing sense that we have a president that's completely overwhelmed by them.
We cannot turn against one another by letting this fight be defined as a war between America and Islam. Muslim Americans are our friends and our neighbors, our co-workers, our sports heroes.
I think we need to have a moratorium on new immigration from the Middle East until we get a grip on who's here and whether or not they've come to attack us. And until we're certain that we're not admitting people who would attack us, I think we need to just press pause.
It sounds to me that the president is more interested in protecting the reputation of Islam than he is in protecting the American people.
And then the cynicism.
It is the responsibility of all Americans, of every faith, to reject discrimination. It's our responsibility to reject proposals that Muslim Americans should somehow be treated differently.
To spend a significant amount of time talking about discrimination against Muslims. Where is there widespread evidence that we have a problem in America with discrimination against Muslims?
Instead, we will prevail by being strong and smart.
And this is a president that called them the JV when they first emerged, ISIS did. And then just on the eve of the Paris attacks, basically argued that they were being contained, called the attacks in Paris a setback, as opposed to a widespread terrorist attack that showed real progress on behalf of ISIS.
You imagine FDR going before Congress and saying, we were attacked yesterday in Pearl Harbor. I really don't want to talk about who did it, but, you know, we just want to say they were terrible people and they were thugs. Well, who was it, Mr. President? Identify your enemy, target your enemy, take your enemy out.
And, you know, we want, we the people, the American people, whom he does not know in any intimate sort of manner. We want action. We want action against Islamic State.
For 7 years, I have confronted this evolving threat each and every morning in my intelligence briefing.
His own report by the commission by the DIA, CIA, and NSA predicted this will spread worldwide in growing numbers unless it suffers serious losses of territory in the battlefield in Iraq and Syria.
In Iraq and Syria, airstrikes are taking out ISIL leaders.
We continue to conduct very limited air assaults, and you can't just defeat them from an air perspective.
And the president tells us we're not going to put troops on the ground?
If you have a malignant tumor in your body and you do nothing to eradicate that tumor, it begins to metastasize, grow, and kill you.
There are several steps that Congress should take right away.
Gun control, that's part of the president's appeal to America from the Oval Office.
Congress should act to make sure no one on a no-fly list is able to buy a gun.
Well, it's sort of a bait and switch thing.
He announced nothing new other than we need gun control, even though it would have done nothing to prevent the attack in California.
What could possibly be the argument for allowing a terrorist suspect to buy a semi-automatic weapon?
There are people that work for DHS that are on the no-fly list, and by the way, these individuals that conducted this attack would not have been prevented from accessing their weapons.
We've decided that we're going to talk about gun control. In reality, we need to be talking about border security. We need to be talking about terrorists and how they get to our country.
After Paris, by the way, the only emotion the president ever showed on his overseas trips is when he was attacking the GOP.
We're working with friends and allies to stop ISIL's operations, to disrupt plots, cut off their financing, and prevent them from recruiting more fighters.
A lot of countries that have put their names onto a piece of paper.
With American leadership, the international community has begun to establish a process.
I mean, he honestly believes that there is a coalition fighting against ISIS. This is absurd. There is no such coalition.
The strategy that we are using now, that is how we'll achieve a more sustainable victory.
That the same strategy that has brought us to this point is the strategy he is going to continue with.
You know, I did not feel better. I didn't feel any passion from him. I felt like he could give he could care less. He could care less.
I mean, this guy is such a total pussy. It's stunning.
I think not only did the president not to make things better tonight, I fear he may have made things worse in the minds of many Americans.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the difference between a feckless, lead-from-behind, inactive president and what's being talked about right now during the CNN debate. You know what, folks? Time for some equal time. Gene Baradelli behind me lines will be back after this brief word from the reigning buffoon of the year, Reverend Al Sharpton. Gene Baradelli behind me lines will be back right after this. The show will be right back. But first, a word from Al Sharpton.
Good evening, Rev. Thanks
Good evening,
to
Rev.
you, Ed. Is this Groundhog Day 2? We are watching that was Attorney General Eric Holder, ABDs, about some Republicans at home are already beating the drums of war. Today, the Pentagon refuted that claim. And he said the American people do not want him to, quote, dwiddling, they do not want him dwiddling his thumbs. You can get a gig as a contortionist. Intravenous fluids and pills coated with gelatin. We don't leave our women or men in uniform behind. It's a monument to the hubris of Dick Cheney, Representative Raul Labrador. Years of abuse. I personally apologize to Mr. Peebles. Just ask to soon-to-be former Congressman. Democrats are outright jitty. CIA's counterterrorism center. Veteran Affairs Secretary Shinseki. Why do I always mess up his name? Shinseki. I love my critics. I have fun with that.
Politics Nation with the Reverend Al Sharpton starts right now. Good evening, Rev.
Good evening, Dr. Dyson.
But wait, there's more.
And we will much about that be committed. So there's no real conflict. Michael Druniak, including Lincoln himself, Daniel Day-Lewis. Behind Monica Lewinsky, the one and only Trey Songz is here. But Allison Lundergan Grimes, Gina De Jesus. When Gina De Jesus, Tea Party challenger Matt Bivens. People don't want to have their Social Security overall. The Republican savior, Mark Rubio's big night. In evolution and Galileo, this whole thing of Galileo, America's changed. Unless IT and Skillets, President Putin doing something similar back in, it won't change this fundamental fact about the GOP. Just how absurd these attacks is. Nearly 6 months after the dangerous traffic jam, the Thai military says, my friend for many years, Ilyana Van Zandt. There's nothing there.
And they gave this guy a TV show? Let's get back to our show. Gene Baradelli, back behind the main lines. Quick programming note, in case you missed the show live here on Spreaker, we are rebroadcast on multiple internet outlets and on AM radio at WNJC 1360 AM, Philadelphia's Renaissance station, also on Red State Talk Radio, on High Plains Daily News Radio and Sackheads Radio, at Rebooting Liberty Radio Network, and K98 Talk. Thanks to everybody for listening to us wherever you're listening to us, and if you're not listening to us there, maybe you'll listen to us on Stitcher or iTunes or Player FM or any other host of outlets out there, including iHeartRadio now. Thank you, iHeartRadio, for picking us up. And while I got you listening, check out www.BehindEnemyLinesRadio.us. That's the home for this show. Check us out on the Facebook and the Twitters at BEL_radio. And also, please go to www.brooklynYRS.com. That's the Brooklyn Young Republicans, the place where this show started. If it wasn't for them, you wouldn't be listening to me right now, so please check them out. Folks, getting ready to wrap up the show as we speak here. I mentioned that Reverend Al is our reigning and defending buffoon of the year, and we're getting ready to crown a new one. We're slowly making our way down to who America has for the 2015 Buffoon of the Year. The field was winnowed down to 8, and now we're down to the Felonious 4. And here they are. Winning out from the media bracket are the CNBC debate moderators. By the way, take a look at the difference between these moderators and the CNBC moderators. You'll understand why they took the media bracket and made it to the Felonious 4. Then we have Hillary Clinton making it out of the candidates bracket. No surprise there from our audience. Out of the mayoral bracket or the local bracket, whatever you want to call it, Baltimore Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake. No surprise there, beating Bill de Blasio from the People's Republic of New York City. And Rachel Dolezal makes it out of the newsmakers bracket for her ridiculous life and everything that she did with claiming to be a race that she's not and the fallout that came from that. So those are your final 4, folks, your Felonious 4. We're going to set the brackets up again. You're going to tell us who you got. Over 200 votes have come in throughout Buffoon of the Year. We want to thank everybody for participating in our little contest. You guys make Beyond Enemy Lines the place that it is that I love to be around. Definitely keep voting. Next week, we find out who the finalists are. It's going to be great. Also, some programming notes for you. Next week will be our second annual Behind Enemy Lines Top 10 Worst Christmas Carols Ever. When you hear it, you'll understand why we call it that. It's so tragic that it's funny, folks. Take a listen to that. And then 2 weeks from now will be our Best of 2015 show, where we outline all the great interviews. We revisit everything that was said right here on the show, from newsmakers like Ted Cruz, John Bolton, Senator Mike Lee, Kevin Sorbo, and many, many others. Maybe even some interviews that we didn't get a chance to play, but you should definitely listen to. That'll be our last show of the year, and then we come back live at the beginning of 2016, where we let everybody know not only who won Buffoon of the Year, but what to expect from Behind Enemy Lines in the coming year. We got a lot of big stuff coming, folks. You're going to love it. Final thought time for me. I mentioned Rachel Dolezal. I got to get this off my chest. I'm not blocked by many people on Twitter, but Sean King happens to be one of them from the Black Lives Movement. Oh, wait, not anymore, but we'll get to that in a second. The senior justice, I can't say it without laughing, the senior justice reporter for the whacked out New York Daily News. Why you dropped Celeste Katz and picked up this idiot, I'll have no clue, Daily News. Absolutely ridiculous. But it seems like people are catching on to the huckster, to the lying, to the propagandist that Sean King is. And if you've been following Breitbart lately, you'll be seeing that Sean King has his life unraveling around him. Many questions surrounding what happened to money that went to a project within the BLM movement. Many people shying away from him now. The word was excommunication from Breitbart. It really, it went to that level. There is definitely a crack in the BLM movement resulting from Sean King and his ability to make everything about himself. You know what? Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. This is what happens when you trust a liar, folks. Liars lie. That's what they do. They're not just going to suddenly be honest and be like, oh yeah, here's what all our money is. Oh yeah, I will definitely be, truthful about all my dealings with you. Sure, Daily News, I'll give you, I'll fulfill the description of what a reporter is supposed to be. No. That's not what happens here. When you deal with a liar, you get a liar. And Sean King is a liar. And that's the bottom line, really. So we're out of time, folks. Sorry to end on a downer. Let us know what you thought about the debate tonight at www.behindenemylinesradio.us. Just put a comment on the article for this show. We'll be glad to talk about it with you. But for right now, folks, from the People's Republic of New York City, we are out of here. Good night, folks. Our position has been compromised. It's time to roll out. Report for debriefing at www.behindenemylinesradio.us and look for regular communications via Facebook and Twitter at BEL_radio.